Hey up everybody. Okay then, today then I'm doing a little modification to my electric bike that I cobbled together a couple of weeks back. You can see that in parts 1 to 7 where I made this standard bike into an electric bike, and I modified the hub and repaired the hub of a obsolete hub. So take a look at back them if you're interested. But today, the throttle I put on this bike was just a standard throttle with a battery indicator on, like a bar system, and it's not very accurate. And what I'm doing today then, I'm changing that throttle over for a cheap and cheerful thumb throttle that's got a digital readout of the voltage, and it gives you a much accurate method of assessing how much battery life you've got left on a ride out. So, because I don't think there's any standard type of wiring system for these e-bikes, you can buy things and they've got different coloured wires in. The wires do different things, and you've got to be careful sometimes what you're wiring up to what. I don't think there's any standard. I mean, I've seen 2 pedal assist sensors that's wired up different. They've got different coloured wires, and wires are in different positions in plug, etc, etc. So sometimes you've got to be careful, especially when you're putting the main battery power onto something. So I'll just explain what I'm doing then. Right, this is the throttle I had on the bike originally, and this came out of a Voilamart kit. I don't think it's a Voilamart throttle, it's just what Voilamart use in their kits, and you see them on many a bike, these. And all they are, there's an on-off button, your throttle, and your battery indicator, which isn't very accurate. So what I've done then, I've took this off, and all that happens is one grub screw and it all slides off. And then I've bought this thumb throttle with a digital display on it that reads the voltage out, and it's got an on-off button just the same. The throttle is there, and then you just have to put another hand grip on separate. But all these systems, they all seem to come with different coloured wires and different amount of wires, and I thought I'd just explain. It might help somebody. I've seen a couple of videos that they say a certain coloured wire does a certain thing, but I've found out that I've got the exact coloured wires in this one, but they're wired up to different places. So I just thought I'd explain how to, how to try and assess what you've got on your bike so you don't make any mistakes. Right, I've just gone into my bag of tricks then where all my controller is and my wires, and I've pulled the throttle wires out. And on this particular throttle, this one, your standard type throttle, it's got 6 wires in, which are here: yellow, brown, green, white, black, red. And they all correspond because the throttle came with the controller. And what these wires do in this Voilamart standard type throttle that came in a kit, the actual switch part, the on-off switch, is brown and yellow. The brown is continuous live from the battery, which is 42 volt in my case because my battery is fully charged. The yellow is when the switch is set in the on position. That provides continuity then for the voltage to go to your controller. The battery indicator is green and red, and the green one, when the switch is on in the on position, the green one has got 42 volts going through it. The red one, again in the on position, when the switch is on, is a signal voltage of 4.1 volt. That's when it's switched on, and that's what shows you, that works out the amount of power you've got in your battery. The throttle then is the black and the white wire. The black is the negative and the white is the it's either a potentiometer or a Hall effect, I'm not quite sure which. But when it's switched on and when the throttle is in the off position, you got 0.8 volts coming through, and when it's on full throttle it gives a reading of 3.3 volt. So in this new Thumb Throttle, it's only got 5 wires instead of 6. All the connectors are different. So before you go any further, if I were you, I'd determine that what I've just said with these coloured wires, I wouldn't take it as red. I'd just check everything with your multimeter just to double check that they've put them wires from the controller in the same sequence as I'm using on mine. So just to check the wires then, you just need a standard cheap multimeter and set it to appropriate voltage, direct current, and I've got my set on 200 because my voltage is 42, so the next scale down will not be enough. Right, so put your negative of your multimeter onto the negative side of your battery, and anywhere you can find a negative, and then I've put this pin just into this connector, and I'm looking for the continuous live wire that's going to go to the switch, and in my case I know it's the brown, and then if I touch that brown you can see I've got 41.5 volts, which is my battery voltage. So you can obviously try any of the wires and look for voltage on any of the wires if you can't find it on that brown wire. So once you've found your battery voltage, that's your live that's going to your switch, to this switch on the throttle. So when I put the switch on, that's going to continue the voltage through to the controller to tell it to wake up and do what it should be doing. So in my case, when I've put the switch on, the power's then going to go through the yellow wire to the controller. So with your negative still attached to your negative on your multimeter, you can then double check that the yellow wire has got 41.5 volts. And if I switch it off, that's isolated it. So I know that the yellow and the brown are my positive to the switch. So my battery indicator is green, and to check that, when the switch is on, the green wire should read 42 volts, which is the battery power. So I'm going to pick my green wire up, which is the third one in, put the pin in, and if I touch on that green wire now, That's my battery power, and when I turn that off, that isolates it. So that green wire is now going to me battery indicator light. So that's the full power going to that. And then on mine it's the red wire, which is the signal voltage when the switch is on, and that calculates the battery voltage then and puts it on these bars, on this lighting system of the bar system. And on mine it's the red wire, if that'll just stay still a minute. So I'll just turn the power off, and I'm going to put this little prong into my red wire. That's going to be my signal wire. And I've got 4.1 volts reading on that. So that's the signal wire for the battery indicator. Turn that off. Then what's left, there's the other two wires for the throttle operation. The black's the negative, and the white goes to the throttle hole sensor, or whatever you want to call it, potentiometer. And when the throttle's off, I should get a reading of 0.8 volt, and when it's on full throttle I get 3.3 volt. So we'll just leave black wire for the moment. The white wire then is the signal wire for the throttle, and you can check that by putting the throttle back on. So if I connect my voltmeter to the white wire, with the throttle in the off position, I've got that 0.8 volt reading here. When I put my throttle on, .3 volt. So that's covered 5 at wires then. The only one left to find out that it's correct is the negative, which is the black in my case. So leave me multimeter on the battery negative, turn my multimeter to continuity, and then take the power off. It's just a matter of checking the negative then, and in my case it's the black, so I'm putting my probe into black wire. Then you should get continuity, and that's it really. I mean, I've bought a few things for my bike, and all the various bits, they're all coloured different for some reason. I don't know why, but there's no standard at all. So best to check that first. Then it's a matter of then evaluating and deciding where the new wires are going to fit. There's only 5 wires for this thumb throttle. There's 6 for the standard throttle. So I've now got to find out which is which on these. Right then, going on to the thumb throttle wires, there's 5 wires instead of 6. So obviously we've got to connect 5 wires into the 6 wires on the controller, which corresponded to the standard throttle. So to determine these wires, so you don't get anything connected up with power on that's going to blow anything, you've got to determine what these, especially these 2 wires, do. And I've seen on some videos where they say, I'm sure they say yellow's positive and blue's negative. Well, I'm sorry, but it isn't the case on my bike. So whether mine's just different, wired up different, I don't know. So to determine what's what, all you've got to do is put your multimeter onto continuity and put it onto one onto each wire, the yellow and the blue. Then over here, put your switch on, and you've got continuity with switch on. So obviously that's not a negative wire, that blue, like I've heard some people say. Obviously my wiring might be different, I don't know, but as soon as I take switch off, the continuity stops. So that's the continuous power wire to the switch via the controller, and then when you put the switch on, the power goes through the blue to tell the controller to start doing what it should be doing. So it's not a negative wire, that it's a positive wire. So if you go ahead and connect, like I've seen on some videos where it tells you connect the blue one to the negative, I think you're going to have a big an almighty spark and a bang, and it might damage either the switch or the throttle or the controller. So I would avoid that. But you know, like I've said before, I've seen many of these items come with different colours wires on various components, and there's no sort of standard. So double check your yellow and your blue especially. Then the other three wires, which are on this three-way connector, you've got your black, red and your green. Well, normally this is for your Hall sensor on your thumb throttle and your display for your voltage. Normally your black and your red are your negative and positive. I've always found them to be negative and positive. Then the green one is the signal wire. So what I'm doing then, because my throttle's got a 6-way adapter, you can buy these adapters already pre-wired, and I've got a 3-one here. It's pre-wired, but they've got different coloured wires in, so I'm not just going to join the wires up. I'm going to take the connector off, then take the 6-way connector off the control unit that goes to the original throttle, and I'm going to put the male part of one of these connectors onto the side of the controller, and then the other 2 wires, or the other 3 wires, are going to be bullet connectors to match up to the thumb throttle. Well, I've already put this 3-way male part of the socket on, so that's going to couple into my thumb throttle with those 3 wires. So the red and the black are the positive and negative to the thumb throttle. Just ignore them 2 for a minute. So you've got your red and black, positive and negative, and then your white and your green are the signal wires. So one's from your controller, then one's going to the thumb throttle. So the other wires then, the yellow and the blue from the thumb throttle, they're going to correspond. The brown one from the controller is the permanent voltage from your battery through your controller, but permanent voltage to the switch, and that is your brown. On my case, it's the brown one, which I determined earlier, the brown one to the yellow one. So I've put bullet connectors on these now so they can be coupled together. Then the extra wire from the controller to the original throttle, you have to couple those together, the yellow and the green, and they're going to go to the blue on the new thumb throttle. So when you put your switch on, power's coming up to your switch through the yellow and the brown, which are connected now. Then when you put your switch on, that sends voltage through your blue to the yellow and the green. So that's switched positive, switched voltage to your controller, the green and the yellow. So the only negative is that black wire. So I don't know if other people have got a different setup to me, but I'm pretty sure that if you you don't want to be connecting that blue wire to negative, that's for sure, because it'll cause a short circuit. Right, so I've got those connected now, so I can put the power on. Just turn my battery on. So when I turn this on now, that's going to show me voltage on my battery. It's come down to 39.7 now, because I've been playing around with electrics on bike, so it's brought voltage down a little bit. And hopefully that should start the wheel going. Right, I think that's it for this video. I just hope it's helped somebody with their system. And like I said before, be careful when you're connecting. I'm sure I've seen some videos where they say connect that blue wire to negative, and the yellow and the green wire from the controller that also to the negative. I don't believe that's right. Well, it's not right with my system anyway. So I'm going to sign off for now then, and I hope that's helped you. Thanks for watching then, and if you've enjoyed it, give me a subscribe and a like and a thumbs up. And if not, I'll catch you on my next video. Thanks for watching then. Bye for now.